Shifting gears a little bit to security, what are some measures that Kelsey-Seybold is taking to protect its PHI?
Sure. So security comes down to pretty much three different areas. It's storage, access, and transmission. So the first thing that the security team will tell us, what I do is I build applications that use mostly PHI. They say treat everything as PHI.
Right.
That way we're covered no matter what. So I work mainly in SharePoint. SharePoint has all kinds of security wrapped around it. Single sign-on, it knows who's logged into the computer, etc. Right. So you're covering most of the bases right there just by using a platform that is compliant and is pretty much a modern enterprise level platform. As far as storage goes, we have a secure server center that's offsite. Granted, somebody breaks in, steals a bunch of hard drives. That stuff's encrypted. The data is sprayed across the drive arrays. So if you even have 2 or 3 hard drives, even if you can decrypt it, that data is not useful to you in any way.
Very good.
And so we also have laptops as physical devices that come and go.
Sure.
So all of our laptops are encrypted. All of our desktops are encrypted in case one walks out the door. You just really have to encrypt everything that you can. And it's gotten to the point now to where it's pretty seamless. If the computer runs a little slower, I don't really notice it, but that's just the cost of doing business. So you have to secure your data. It's a big deal. We can get enormous fines. I don't think that they've really tried that or really proven that out through the court system yet, but it's coming and nobody wants to be the first one.
Right.
You know what I mean, to get hit with the stick.
Yeah.
So as far as access goes, you have to have a minimum complexity for the password. You can't use the same password you had before, like kittens to kittens1 kind of a deal. That's always annoying, but they time out, and that's just how it is.
Right.
We do occasionally have the security team go through the clinics and pick up keyboards and look on the bottom. And every single time we find little Post-it notes with people's username and password, and everybody knows to do that.
Right.
So people do come up with low tech, serious potential data breaches. When a nurse or a doctor walks away from the computer, they're supposed to lock it. If they don't, it times out. But also, so we have computers in each exam room. Well, these are Citrix boxes, effectively. So that computer only has access to Epic. And even if they can get to the computer, they have to have a second login then to access our system of record into Epic as well. And so they're not able to get on my SharePoint sites. They're not able to get on and see people's birthdays or whatever shared drives and etc. So it is partitioned off.
Right.
Also for physical security, you can't have within the clinic, when you print labs or whatever, you can't have that printer out in the open or where it's viewable to the hallway, because if somebody has, some of these tests are fairly personal.
Right.
Whether it's VD or this or that, cancer, pregnancy. I mean, these things are a big deal.
Sure.
And so you have to have the printer somewhere that's not open to the public. It's out of the way. It's not where patients are walking by, they can see it.
Right.
And also in nursing stations, they have to have the screen filters on there, so that unless you're right in front of it, you don't see what's on the screen as well. So these are all rules that we have to comply with, and whether it's just we have to put in another NUC or we have to buy different monitors or whatever it is, we just need those bases covered.
Right.
And so for transmission, that's kind of the more simple one. Everything's SSL, and actually we've just got audited by PCI, that's Payment Card International, because we are using, it's one of Epic's MKO, My Kelsey Online is what we've branded it as. It's our patient portal,
Right.
where you can get to quite a bit of your user information, your patient information, so you can see your shot, you can pull up your shot records, your test results, and it'll give you a nice graph of your previous, blood glucose tests or whatever for however many years you've got them in our system. So if you want to access that on the internet, it's of course open, and we have other ways to get to it on mobile devices as well. But as far as security around that, we leverage RSA, and so that is public data that only you should know. So it's questions like, have you ever owned a 1994 Honda Accord? Okay, have you ever lived at this address?
Right.
And it's, yes, no, or have you owned one of these cars, I believe, and it's 3 cars and then no, and then none of these. Same with addresses or whatever else. This is just the recognized standard. I think you have these same questions if you check your credit report
Yes,
online.
right.
So it's a standardized service. I don't want to see any of that stuff. We don't hold that data. We just give them right through to a portal to RSA. And I think we pay about 50 cents per RSA query, maybe 40 cents. It's significant.
Right.
But we need that level of security
Sure.
so that, somebody doesn't guess your password, because your neighbor or your friends or your family members especially, they know what your regular passwords are. They know that you've been to the doctor, things like that.
Right.
And also we're able to give proxy access. And so that's, let's say I want my wife to be able to see my results.
Right.
Then I can grant her access, and it's through the same system. I have to log in and then explicitly grant her access. And I think there's an annual review with that. And in pediatrics, this gets to be a big deal, because there's a lot of security laws around patient data information, security laws around pediatric data. So once the kid gets to be about 12 or 13 years old, mom and dad can't see all their results anymore. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
they may be sexually active, they may have pregnancy, all kinds of other things, and that's a big legal deal.
Right.
To where, of course, you can't unknow that, and the parent flips out, and then you're in court. So anyway, access and transmission is a big deal. So yeah, you put things around, you try and have your platforms as secure as possible. That way you can treat all of your data as PHI, because ultimately it used to be, the first I heard about it, they had to be 3 things that would identify you uniquely. So that would be like your first and last name, your address, and if it was an address, if that was like street and I think city, that counted, or if it was like a phone number and maybe a patient ID. But you used to have those 3 that were on there. Now, if it's just your patient ID, which granted you probably don't even know your patient ID,
Right.
and there's not much you can do with that without full access to the system. But let's say somebody's got a printout of patient IDs or patient names, whatever, and they drop it on the bus on their way to work. We have to report that.
Oh my.
And so law right now, it's, even though it's just birthdays for September and you're just on that list, Kelsey-Seybold now has to contact you and say, we have lost your patient information.
Oh wow.
So you get the letter in the mail. You have patients lose their mind. Oh my God. 'Cause
Sure.
Credit identity theft is a real thing.
Right.
It's about once a year I get my credit card number stolen. And anyhow, so we have to make that, and we also have to offer them, I think, the free credit counseling and a free credit monitoring system or something like that. Talking to the security team, I think most people don't take us up on that offer, but it's a blow to it's a blow to the brand, if you will.
Sure it is.
But we have to take it seriously. We have to let them know that we have lost their data.
Disclosure. Right.
And the laws used to be to where it would get reported up, and internally our security team would say, oh, it's a list of September birthdays for this clinic, because we want to have, I don't know, Billy's name on a printout for his pediatric visit or something like that if he's coming in. That's not the case. We don't get to make that determination anymore.
I see.
That's basically the patient that gets to make that determination. And when somebody gets a form letter, they're going to think, okay, you lost everything, not just you lost this one little bit. But anyway, those are the rules.
Wow. Finishing up, can you tell us what a normal, typical day for you is like at Kelsey-Seybold?
I'd be glad to. So I'm sitting at most of the times, of course, I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm either building a new application, supporting an application, or fending off enhancement requests to the application. So like I said, I do project management, and most of the times, to give one example, there was a month and a half ago where I got a phone call from the director of operations, our VP of operations, I'm sorry, and he's kind of hemming and hawing. Hey Ben, how are you doing? I can hear there's other people in his office that are on the conference call, and like, hey, hey John, how's it going? What can I help you with? And it was kind of more, how's your wife doing, this, that, and the other, and I knew it was going to be bad, and it was. So what the need is, so to wrap that up, I get presented with needs and business needs, not necessarily. I have a lot of latitude into how I'm able to meet these. So back to the example anyway. The need was, we had one provider. One of the doctors said that he had really good luck with his nurse calling up Medicare patients that hadn't had their physical in the last year, and so they're overdue for their physical. Oh, I've just had this great. My nurse just did it. It worked great. So let's do that for everybody. Okay, so John emailed me. A Excel spreadsheet of patient information like I said, everything's PHI, patient information. And so he said, we want to start off with the spring clinic, and we want to have this broken out by provider or whatever. We want to have a way for the nurses to contact these people. And by the way, I need it right away, because we had tried to do this within Epic, and it just, using their CRM, customer relations management add-on. Epic's great at doing Epic. Epic is terrible at doing anything else.
Oh wow!
And so that's just how it is, and it's good for me.
Right.
Anyway, but so I use SharePoint, put together a list, loaded up pretty much almost in toto this Excel spreadsheet into the list, and I grouped by location and by provider. And so those, you have the groups right there. I sort it by last modified date, so the oldest stuff is on the top. And then we decided we wanted to have 3 phone calls, and the phone calls all are going to have the same, can potentially have the same outcomes. So I made a separate list with that of the phone call outcomes that they would select. And then some of the outcomes would not warrant another phone call, like if they had made the appointment, if they were no longer a patient,
right,
et cetera. I'm sure you can see it gets into details that aren't too interesting. So I just flagged them, yes or no for continuous calls.
Sure.
And then I added, just used a lookup field to pull that data over. So you pick whatever the call outcome was. I added some workflow around it to where when, no matter which user made that call selection,
right,
you make call 1, then call 2 would unlock for the next time you go to it, and then once you made call 2, call 3 would unlock, and whoever set initially 1, 2, and 3 was captured. So the user is known because that's who's logged into the computer. It's, like I said, kind of single sign-on with SharePoint, and I'm also time-stamping, the date and time-stamping when the call was made. And so they've got a real-time list, and nurses just start at the top. Call this person, call that person, call whatever. And so, I mean, the end result was really fairly elegant. I tried to make it as simple as possible.
Sure.
And also for the form, you don't want to have any kind of training manual. Anything somebody can get wrong, they will get wrong.
Yes.
Nobody reads the manual. I mean, I'm sure everybody's like that. You get your new phone, you don't go to a website and read out how to use it.
Right.
You just do it.
Right.
So, yeah, keep it simple, stupid is kind of the name of the game as far as that goes. Because, like I said, with the providers, nurses also have a big variety of technical expertise, and so when they get notification emails or whatever, if something's overdue, for example, I try to have things in red that are important. I underline stuff that's important. I put links in the sentence. Click here for whatever, and just keep it brief, because nobody reads after the first 2 or 3 lines.
Right.
But yeah, so once I create these projects, I have to leave a little bit of myself behind, because there's always support needs for it.
Yes.
And so a little bit of forward thinking can really go a long way with that. So for security groups, access, so forth. Another one I have just built is clinical communications.
Okay.
And so this is used by all the clinics as well as the central business office. So a patient has a trouble with, they get a bill for something their insurance should have paid. They don't feel like they should have to pay that much. Whatever the case is, it's all billing issues. So one side or the other fills out the form, and the message goes to the other side, from the business to the clinic, or the clinic to the business office. And so access to that is controlled by NT security groups, because I don't want to control it.
Right.
I shouldn't be approving.
That's not your, right.
That's not, yeah,
that's not your scope.
Not what I do, absolutely. And so I've set this up to where somebody calls the help desk. Hey, I need access to this.
Right.
They're able to look up who they are and who their clinic admin is. So they ask the admin, do you want this person to have access to this? Because it is PHI, it's somewhat sensitive data, and so you don't want a janitor or whomever getting access to it, or want somebody getting access to other things they're not supposed to. And then they're able to yes, yay, nay it right there. And if I hadn't built that out to where it's a help desk function, it would be a Ben function. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, like I said, that's all. The majority of what I do really is trying to fend off or trying to fit people's needs, because they have a user story. You know what I mean? So, like I say, for this clinical communications app, somebody from the business office says, well, we want to review all of the items before they go out to the clinics, because we don't really trust our coders, or people get stuff wrong, or we have a different initiative of the day and we're not supposed to code this way anymore, or whatever the deal is. And so I had everything required. I had the first bucket. The first bucket that all of the items from the business office went into was just one big, like I said, age sorted list of items to get approved by supervisors. And so there's a bunch of different groups, a bunch of different supervisors, and I said, okay, well there's 75 in there, and I don't want to look at all of them and have to scroll through 3 pages to try and find mine. So is there some way you can help me with that? So as an enhancement, I was able to, I told them, okay, well I'll make more lists or whatever, set it up to where, give me the names of your groups and who's in them. And so I set up the population at first of these different groups, and then I gave them access to manage their own groups. So if somebody within, let's say Sally works in the insurance follow-up group, whenever Sally creates something, it goes into the insurance follow-up bucket.
Sure.
So that the insurance follow-up supervisor just looks at her insurance follow-up and then works in that way. They're all segregated out.
Right.
But I get constant requests, and a lot of times it's just, that's not in the cards, or that's a good idea for phase 2. You know what I'm saying?
Good. Yes.
So the adage with that is phase 2 never happens. That's not exactly true, but a lot of users don't like being put off, and
sure.
So also one user's needs may conflict or have nothing to do with anybody else or what's going on. There's another one of the first applications I built for John was a optimization intake request.
Okay.
Or request intake. So what was happening is, a department chief would call up people on the Epic team and say, hey, make this change. Epic team doesn't know. Okay, it's a requirement, now make that change.
Right.
And then the business office says, hey, we can't bill this now. After the fact, or the rest of the department is saying, why did this happen? You know what I mean? There was no vetting of requests or anything like that. So there was every 2 weeks there was a meeting called the clinical committee that would meet, and it was super high up people. I mean, the president was there, all the VPs, and it was just the amount of hourly wages that were consumed by this meeting. Just driving to get to this is just astronomical. This is not things these people should be doing.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So they decided, okay, well, there has to be a better way. Let's see if this guy can automate. And so that was the first one, to where anybody puts in a request, it goes to their supervisor. Their supervisor has an amount of time to approve it. If they don't act on it, then it escalates to the supervisor's supervisor. The whole idea is the whole crux of it is the escalation, so that it gets vetted all the way through the different levels before it gets to this committee. And then this committee can just look at a website. They'll get a notification. They can read through all the justification and all the questions and stuff that the previous managers and supervisors have had, and then they can decide, yay or nay. And at that point, once John has said, yes, this is something we want to do, then it goes to the Epic team, and they say they decide what it will, or try and put together what it will take to accomplish that.
Right.
And so, rules and restrictions, it's all part of not being a mom and pop shop anymore. But luckily we're growing. So
very good.